It has become a day, Mr. President, to promote equal rights for all Americans, whatever the background may be. In 1963, King led a nonviolent campaign in Birmingham, Alabama, which was known at the time as the most segregated city in America. Marchers were assaulted with water hoses and with attack dogs, the brutality of which led to a truly national outrage and an unprecedented push for civil rights legislation. I remember those photographs, Mr. President, of young Americans being attacked by police dogs, and that picture was famous, infamous, and burned into the American psyche. King was arrested that day by the Birmingham City Police, and there in Birmingham on April 16, 1963, while he was in jail, he wrote an open letter to the public. It's been known ever since as a letter from Birmingham jail, and it really outlined his nonviolent philosophy. It's become required reading in schools and universities and around the world. I've used it in my classes when I was teaching. The letter defends the strategy of nonviolent resistance to racism, saying that people have a moral responsibility to break unjust laws and to take direct action instead of waiting potentially forever for justice to come through the court system. He personally suffered unusually harsh conditions in the Birmingham jail. While he was there, friends smuggled in a newspaper of the following day, and it was an article called A Call to Unity. It was written by 8 white Alabama clergymen against King and against his methods. This letter caused King to write his response, and that is what has become his famous A Letter from Birmingham Jail. Lots of things to talk about Dr. King, but I think, to me, the writing that I most admire is this letter from Birmingham Jail. The letter responded to several criticisms by the clergymen who believed that the battle against racial segregation should be fought in the courts and not in the streets. The King argued his case on religious grounds, legal, political, historical grounds. His goal clearly was to reach the hearts and minds of his audience. It was a powerful defense of the goals of the Birmingham campaign and of the civil rights movement in general. He was criticized by the clergyman that he and his fellow activists were outsiders, not from Birmingham, and they were causing trouble in the streets of Birmingham. King countered by saying he was invited by the people of Birmingham because, he said, injustice is here in probably the most racially divided city in the country, with a brutal police force, unjust courts, and many, many unsolved bombings of both homes and churches. King believed that all communities and states were interrelated, and he wrote this, and permission to read a few brief excerpts.
Objection.
Injustice everywhere is a threat to justice. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment to destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Anyone who lives anyone who lives inside the United States can never be considered an outsider anywhere within its bounds. The King warned that we know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. The clergyman accused the civil rights movement of being extreme, and King agreed. He referred to himself as an extremist. He said Jesus and other great reformers were extremists as well. So the question is not whether, he said, the question is not whether we will be extremists, but what kind of extremists we will be. We will be extremists for hate or for love. King praised the demonstrations in Birmingham and the demonstrators for what he called their sublime courage, their willingness to suffer, and their amazing discipline in the midst of great provocation. This letter from Birmingham jail is truly one of the classic documents of the civil rights movement. And so this national holiday honors the courage of a man who endured harassment, threats, beatings, even bombings. He went to jail, amazingly, 29 times to achieve freedom for others. And he knew he would pay the ultimate price for his leadership. But he kept on marching, and he kept on protesting, and he kept on organizing anyway. King has now been dead longer than he lived. But he lived a truly extraordinary American life. And just to remind you, at the age of 33, he spoke with John F. Kennedy, President Kennedy, about civil rights. At 34, he delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech. At 35, he won the Nobel Peace Prize. And at 39, his life was ended. Some 45 years ago. He left a legacy of hope and inspiration that continues today. He said, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy." Clearly, he's widely seen, Mr. President, as America's greatest advocate of nonviolence, inspired by his Christian faith and by the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi. Others are willing to do anything to achieve freedom, including violence. And we still see that today. But King used his power of words. That's when he said, "We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools." So he used words. He used nonviolence and civil disobedience to achieve goals that really, truly seemed impossible at the time. Through his example, King taught Americans truly timeless values, and those values were of courage, truth, justice, compassion, dignity, humility, and service. Though this holiday was yesterday, we should never forget that it commemorates universal love, forgiveness, and nonviolence that empowered his life and his spirit. Thank you.